Good morning. Let's pin that comment. How are ya? Absolutely my pleasure. Good morning. I think, Jeff, I just gave you, bring you in again. So, Frank, thank you for tuning in. Much appreciated. Get my camera right. There we go. It's a commitment. So, Jeff, are you, I see you requested. Sawdust Woman, what's up? Let me send it again. It's saying you're unable to join. If you could send that back to me again, I would accept it. Joe Harry, what's up? Okay, let me send this to Jeff again. So just send it again. How's everybody doing this morning? David Duyard, what's up? Hidden Queries, what's up? Wood and Cats. Thanks, Joe. So I'm not sure where Jeff is. But he did request to join. And I send the request. Well.
Okay. Sorry about that. I got messages to set up my microphone and my camera, and that's what caused the problems. Every time I did that, it wouldn't let me back in. So here we are.
It's all good, my brother. My pleasure. I think James Brown would come out on stage and let the crowd is great. So I think we're good to go. How's
Okay.
your morning?
Just fine.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Just cleaning up the shop and getting ready for our chat. So.
Perfect. Now, I want to say that when I guess it was 2 years ago, was looking to take a chair class, it was yours that I looked into, and you were booked. And you sent it to someone that was closer to me, which is how David and I met.
Uh-huh.
So this kind of started with you, me meeting David and my quest to take a chair class, and I still have not taken it yet.
There's always next year.
Yes, that's always next year. But I told David he's got to hook me up. I can't wait for a class. We got to figure out a date, and I just got to go hang with him and make it happen. So we're going to start out with a series of questions, and I'm not going to ask them all like I usually do because it winds up taking way too much time.
Okay.
So we're going to ask a few questions, get to know you a little bit, and then we get into your journey and how you got to where you are doing what you do.
Okay.
All right. What word or phrase do you overuse?
What was a phrase I overuse?
What word or phrase do you overuse?
I don't talk much, so I'm going to pass on that one.
Okay. What is your least favorite thing to do?
Least favorite thing to do? Probably cleaning the house. I like the results, but I don't like the process. So,
What is your most favorite thing to do?
right now, I would have to say drawing chair plans and I've been updating my class manuals with new drawings, and I've been really amazed. I've been doing plans for Curtis for 5 years, and I've been going back, and as I've gotten better at using the tools for drawing, I've been going back and revising some of those drawings, and it's just so amazing and satisfying to see that I've been able to improve something that when I first did it, thought was really good.
Thought it was good.
And it's even better, I think. You know, it's subtle changes, but I think the drawings have gotten better. It's very, very satisfying.
Right now, that's one of the things I want to dive into a bit. But we're going to go through the questions and then we get into that. And I like to put a little more energy into what you do for Chairmakers.
Okay.
So, what irks you the most?
Excuse me?
What irks you the most?
What irks me the most?
Yes.
Oh, man. You mean just in general or in the shop?
In life.
In life? I guess people being closed-minded about things in general really irks me.
Okay. Got an example?
There are lots of examples right now. I'm not going to get into them.
Right. We try not to be political here.
Yeah.
What sound makes you happiest?
What sound?
Yes.
I'll tell you, it's the thing I love the most here is when it really snows a lot and there's no sound. You can't hear a thing. It is like, we live about 3 miles from a highway, from an interstate, and there's generally a bit of a hum in the background, but when it snows, no sound, and it's fabulous.
Right. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
I think architecture would be interesting. A little late for me, but I thought about it at one point when I was a kid, being an architect, but never followed through.
Well, you can't do it all. What would you like on your tombstone?
On my tombstone? Probably just he was a decent guy.
Okay. What is it about your personality that drives your business?
That drives my business? Um, um, Very low key, very meticulous, and very organized. So all of those things contribute to um, running a good class. And, I'm on top of things all the time, and also contribute to being able to do very meticulous drawings and pay attention to detail, things like that. And those things have made me successful, I think.
Okay. What is it about your personality that hinders your business?
I hate promoting myself. I hate promotion. I don't like social media. I don't like the chit chat back and forth, and I'm not good at it. So I just don't engage in that. And I know it probably would be better if I were able to do that, a little more back and forth between people. I'm just not good at it, so I don't do it.
So, okay, so let's talk about that. So you mean like the commenting?
The what?
The commenting, like a topic, people comment on a topic, and when you said it back and forth, what do you mean by that?
Well, some people, I do comment on things a little bit, but it's generally, I see a lot of comments going back and forth that are a little on the more personal side and a little more personal chit chat, and I'm not good at that. I see people doing stories all the time that involve things that not related to their primary thread on their feed, and it just makes me exhausted even thinking about doing that. So
Why is that?
I'm a very quiet, introverted person by nature. The only time I talk is I talk a lot during class, but I'm talking about chairs, and I've got a captive audience, so it works well. I do try to engage with students, and I tell stories about other chair classes and things like that. But in general, if you put me, the worst thing in the world for me would be putting me in a party where I didn't know anyone. I'd be a wreck. I'd be in the corner.
Okay, let me tell you, I'm in that environment that you just described. I'm no good in that either. But so what you're saying is, I'm not gonna get anything personal on you right now.
Oh, well, you might. I mean, you might. I'm pretty good one-on-one when there's a good interaction, but when I don't know someone and there's no common topic, I just can't make up conversation. So people say I'm quiet, which is true, except when I'm talking about chairs. So,
and that's probably on a subject that you're most comfortable and confident with.
Yeah. When I started my blog, I was reading about what you should write a blog about, in general. How do you know you found a topic that would be good for a blog? And this quote always stuck with me. The guy said, if you go to a party and you start talking to people and you're boring them to death with what you're talking about, that's the topic. Because there will be a niche of people that are really interested in that. So, and that's what I did when I started my blog. Is it's devoted to the process of chair making, all the nitty gritty details. And for most people, they couldn't care less. But there is a niche that really appreciates that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I'm into old fans, I'm into old refrigerators, I'm into a lot of weird stuff, and they're groups.
Yeah. There's something for everyone out there.
There is. Okay, so we have a question here. Um, who is your favorite chair designer? Would designer be different than chair maker?
I would group them together, probably. Um, it's different people for different reasons. I'd say my current favorite chair designer would be Bern Chan. His interpretation of his kind of modern take on Windsor chairs is just phenomenal. You know, it's just gorgeous stuff. Brian Boggs, his ladder back chairs, they really. It's the reason I started making ladder backs, because I saw Brian's chairs and they really they really say something to people, and people want to build those ladder back chairs. He's no longer making those, but those are the ones I teach. And if you look at some of Curtis Buchanan's chairs, some of his chairs that he's designed from scratch, like Velda's chair or Potter's chair, they're gorgeous chairs. But he's also done some really amazing, in drawing the plans, I get to see this, he's done some really amazing work updating traditional designs, very, very subtle design changes and things like that. And it's a different approach to design than starting from scratch, but it's really, I really appreciate what he's been able to do with that. So those three, and Pete Albert, of course, does some stunning. I can't limit it to one. Sorry.
and Brian asked, repeat the name. Bern, he's from Australia. Brian, I'll send you his stuff.
Excuse me?
He asked you to repeat the name.
Bern Chanley.
Yep.
From Australia.
Yep.
Brian Boggs, of course. Curtis Buchanan, Windsor Chairmaker, and Pete Galbert. They're all on Instagram.
Okay. What was your favorite concert?
Favorite what?
Concert.
Concert. I don't go to concerts. Last concert I went to was Beach Boys in 1972.
Now, I thought about what your answer would be to that question.
Well, I have been to, there used to be like traditional music concerts locally. Those were pretty good, but I haven't been, they've ended. I haven't been to one in a long time.
All right. When was the last time you cried?
Last time I cried. It's been a long time. A friend of mine, quite a long time ago, probably 25 years ago. So he was about my age, which was much younger then, was very sick and dying. And that really got to me when I went to see him the last time.
Hold on, how long ago?
Yeah, that was a long time ago, 25 years ago, probably.
You hadn't cried in 25 years?
Oh, I probably have, but I can't remember.
So what about tears of joy? When was the most difficult time for your business, and how did you overcome it?
Are you talking about this current business, the chair making?
Yes.
I don't depend on the income from chair making or from teaching. So I don't really factor in whether I'm financially successful or not. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not saying that I'm wealthy, but it's a supplement, right?
Or that you're doing it for free.
Well, people need to have an investment in the class. You can't just do it for free, I don't factor that in. What I do factor in is, am I being successful with the students? Am I giving them a good experience? And in fact, the first class that I did this year, which was 2 weeks ago, at the end of the class, I was questioning some of what I've been doing for a long time. There have been things that things that I've been teaching a certain way that I've never been quite satisfied with. And it spurred, having not taught for a year and a half, it spurred me on to start thinking about communicating those processes in a different way. But it's
what do you mean?
Well, there's a one of the things that people think is very, very difficult is figuring out all the angles for chairs, particularly when the front legs splay, which means they are on angle side to side, and the rear legs splay side to side and rake backward. So they're moving in different directions, and the parts are curved and bent. And how do you figure out how to do all those angles and drill mortises into round parts that are not straight up and down? And it's actually, if you understand the concepts, it's actually pretty easy. And the jig set for doing this on drill press is dead simple. But explaining a simple process or explaining a concept that's basically simple can be very difficult. And I've never really been happy with my explanation. And I want students to understand how I came up with these jigs, because it would possibly allow them to make their own chairs. But getting that across has been very, very difficult, and I've never really been satisfied. So I need to look at simplifying that explanation, and I'm going to be working on that over the next few classes. And I have a demo at a Woodworkers Guild in November, that's the topic. So I need to be prepared for that. But that's never been, I've always been unsatisfied with that. I've got all sorts of props and things that I use to try to demonstrate how to figure out an angle, a drilling angle, but it's just been really, really difficult to say it in simple terms that people understand.
Okay. Do you have any black friends?
One.
Okay. Listen, one's better than none.
Who's been a friend for over 40 years. No.
Is he a chairmaker as well?
No. He was a friend of my wife's before we got married, and they've kept in touch, and we've kept in touch. And he's a good friend and quite a character. And
those are always good. Who would you most like to have a conversation with?
Most like to have a conversation with? Gosh. Can it be someone that's not living?
Sure.
I just finished a book on Leonardo da Vinci, and oh my gosh. If you think that guy was just a painter, I mean, that guy was
he was some guy.
It'd be something to talk with him for a little bit.
Yeah, he was a lot of things.
He was a lot of things, and completely before his time, everything. And it was pretty amazing. I had no idea.
And he was great at it, and he worked a lot.
Yeah. It was just phenomenal. So,
what advice would you give to someone just starting out?
Just starting out in furniture or chair making?
Chair making.
In chair making. One of the things I always think about in business, and before chair making, I had a graphic design business for a long time, was always give your customer a good experience, and as much as you can, under promise and over deliver. So if you say you're going to do something by Friday, you get it done by Thursday, that's a good sign, you know, that sort of thing. But give them a good experience. And if you do that, your customers will keep coming back, and even as you're developing your skills. So for chair makers, I know for furniture makers, it's really difficult to make a living job with furniture. Teaching is a great supplement, I think, for furniture makers, chair makers in particular. There's a lot of interest currently for in handmade chairs currently, and it's a great way. It's also a great way to learn about your craft by teaching it to others. I've learned so much from teaching classes that I would never have occurred to me if I were just making chairs on my own. So that it gives you a lot of things if you add teaching to your arsenal. Now you can't just start out and start teaching. You have to have some. You'll need a few years of experience first before you get to the point where you're able to teach. But if you're good, I mean, I've got my assistant at the last class was Eric Canizaro. He's an aspiring chair maker. He's been doing Windsors and mostly ladderbacks now, and he's only been chair making for 3 years, but he's super talented. He worked with Curtis, and he had a artisan residence at Aramont, and he worked with me a little bit, maybe for about a week, and I got him started on some things that he wasn't able to do, which like those drilling angles we were talking about. And he helped me last week, and he's coming back in for 2 more classes. And the goal is to train him to teach, which he's going to start doing next year. He's going to start teaching Boggs chair classes. So adding teaching as a component as early as you can, I think, is a great way to supplement, because I know making a living at furniture is hard, and you have to be more than just a furniture maker. You have to promote, which is why I don't sell chairs, because I don't like to promote.
Most of your students come to you to learn to make a chair to do what?
I would say the vast majority are hobbyists. They work wood. A lot of people are attracted not to me, but to the Boggs chair. They want to make that chair in particular. Some people want to work directly with me. So most are hobbyists, and they just want to make a chair. And
You're gonna make a chair themselves.
Make a chair themselves, yeah. And I do, and most of them are middle-aged or older. I do get some younger people. I do get some professionals, but those are the distinct minority.
Okay. Brian has another question. Best advice for approaching a difficult chair build?
I would, if there are processes that you're not sure about, do some research first before you figure it out. Before you do, I would do a lot of practice before I would test things out first, and make sure they work before you did it on actual chair parts. And anything that you're unfamiliar with, do some research, figure out how to do it before you do it. When you get down to assembly, or in our case, steam bending also, when you're doing that, especially steam bending, when you're doing something like that, you've got a few minutes to do it. Make sure you know what you're going to do when you have those few minutes. Rehearse ahead of time. Same thing probably for glue ups on a difficult glue up. Prepare yourself.
And Brian's a very talented woodworker, wood turner. So I'm sure he could handle that part. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about you. No more questions on that list, actually.
Okay.
So, I'd say let's stick to the cheer part. No, let's go back. You said you had a drafting business.
Graphic design.
Graphic design.
Yes.
All right, so take us back to that.
Well, I'll take you back before that. That'll kind of all lead into the chair making eventually. I have a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree from Temple University, Tyler School of Art, Temple University, in weaving, fiber art. And I wanted to be a weaver. When I got out of college, there were no jobs for people with a BFA in weaving. So I went to work for my uncle for 2 years, who was a graphic designer. Back in those days, that was 1975, everything was analog. There was no digital, nothing was digital. But I learned the basics of the business. I really didn't do design work for him, but I learned how to prepare things for print, which turned out to be useful. 2 years after that, I got an opportunity to switch to full-time weaving, which I did, and I spent 7 years weaving and going to craft fairs. I did small production items. My biggest selling item were camera straps, which, if that was still my thing I made, I'd be bankrupt. No one needs a camera strap now for 35mm cameras. And but I did that for 7 years. Went to craft fairs. The only way to reach your customer back then was to go to craft fairs or do cold calls to galleries, which, being being averse to promoting myself, I would never do a cold call. So the only way to reach people were to go to craft fairs. So that's what I did for 7 years, and it was too hard. I couldn't make it. I couldn't make enough money, and it was just exhausting. And so I switched after 7.
So let me say, because I've done fairs too. You, speaking of not liking, you being an introvert, being at a fair, you gotta sell.
Yeah, I know.
You gotta convince people to buy your stuff.
I know, and I'm not good at it.
Right. So whatever you thought you was avoiding by not making cold calls and going to fairs, you kind of put yourself in a bigger pool.
Yeah, it just didn't work for me. There were people that I felt were not as good craftspeople as me, but were better marketers, and they were the ones that were making money. And but that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to. I just wasn't good at it, so I just had to stop. And I after 7 years, I quit cold turkey and got a job for a local magazine. Worked for them for about 9 months, and then I started my own business. No clients, just me working at home, and
doing what?
Graphic design. And so I knew how to make things for print. And we were still, this was 1980, 86, 87, we were still mostly analog, just starting to use digital tools, but not really. Digital tools were a real compromise at that point. And I got a partner, a friend of mine. We became partners. We set up an office in a town nearby. And that turned into a 33-year career. We got clients. We got big clients, and we were able to that partnership last 7 years. There was another partnership that lasted 2 years, and then I went out on my own in 96, and was on my own for about 10 years. And but we had established, we were fortunate in that in this little town, Winchester, Virginia, there were 2 or 3 corporate headquarters of large businesses, and we did work for most of them, so we had large clients, large corporate clients, mostly doing business to business marketing. And it was good, interesting work. It paid pretty well. I had employees, and eventually I had another partner. but the work itself was not satisfying. There was something, I always felt like there was something missing in that work, because the work was temporary, and the resultant work was always temporary. It was an advertisement, a catalog, a brochure, things like that had very short shelf life. So there was nothing permanent that I was leaving behind. Plus, at that point in early 2000s, all the work was digital. Most of it was all digital by that point, and I was good at that. But it was you end up spending 8 hours a day sitting in front of the screen, moving a mouse around. And although the work is challenging and interesting, there was something missing. There was definitely something missing. I had always liked wood, but I'd never really done much. I kind of played around. It wasn't even a hobby. I just liked it. I had an old table saw, a real cheap table saw, and homeowners level table saw and drill press, and but I never really done anything with it. In 2002, I decided I wanted to do some woodworking, some real woodworking, and we have a building, the building I'm sitting in right now, that was in bad repair, but we renovated that building to be a wood shop and to potentially be a home office as well. I was thinking about backing down my business, getting rid of all the employees, and just working by myself at home. And so we renovated this building, did a couple of additions, and this is 2002 and 2003. So whenever I start something new, I read everything I possibly can about it. So I subscribe to all the magazines and look at websites and things like that. And I came across, very early 2003, came across Mike Dunbar in New Hampshire teaching winter. I said, that sounds interesting. I'd like to try that. So I took a class with him, and I just loved it. I really loved it. So when I started renovating shop, I had really no idea what I was going to do. I had no tools, nothing, and really not really a plan. But after I took that chair making class with Dunbar, it gave me a focus, and I really wanted to pursue winter chairs at that time. Which
okay, let me pause you.
Okay.
When you renovated this building and you didn't know what it was, you just loved wood. From that time, between the time you took the class, how much woodworking did you actually know and had you done?
Between the time I
finished renovating the building and took the class?
Less than a year. I'd done almost nothing. Very, very little. But when I took the class with him, his classes also aimed mostly at hobbyists, which is what I was, and he was very good at getting a whole room full of students through from start to finish in 5 days to make a chair that you could sit in, whether it's a great chair or not. But I found I was good at it. I was good at shaping the seat, and I was good at all the work involved in doing it. And he also made it easy to continue. You could buy, I had no source of logs or anything like that, which is what winter chair makers prefer to use now, but you could buy a kit for another chair. So whenever I took a class with him, I'd buy a kit. And
how many classes did you take with him?
I took 7 classes with him. I'd go up twice a year. It was my vacation. Twice a year, I'd go up there and take classes with him. And I'd always come back with wood for another chair, and I'd build another chair on my own. And so he made it, there are many things I don't like about what he did, but the things that I do like were that he made it easy for for someone like me to get started. And I was at home, I was working completely in isolation. I didn't know any chair makers. I had really no sources of logs or air dried lumber or anything like that. So his process made it possible for me to continue without a huge amount of effort. I could go home and make another chair. During that time, during those 3 years, so 2003, I think I took my last class in 06 with him. During that time, I'm continuing to read fine woodworking every month and websites, and I come across Brian Boggs's chair and that 3-slat side chair, which is kind of like it's an iconic post and rung chair, and it really, I wanted to make that chair. I saw that and I said, I want to make that. And I go to his website, see what he's doing, and everything about what he was doing really intrigued me. And I thought, now this is a guy that knows how to build chairs, and I want to make that one. So in 2006, I took a class with Brian up in Canada, at a little school in Canada, and we made a 2-slat chair. Not exactly the chair I wanted to make, but you make whatever the teacher tells you to make. And immediately I realized that, and that was also my very first introduction to figuring out drilling angles, although on a simpler chair than I teach now. But the thing that most impressed me was the joinery on those chairs. I remember he and I happened to be staying in the same bed and breakfast, and the night before class, we went out to dinner, and I was telling him what I was doing with Mike Dunbar and talking about drilling mortises, and I said, yeah, a hole is just a hole, and just drilling this hole. And he said, a hole is not a hole. He just like, it's a precise part of the joinery, and I had never really been exposed to that. And the chairs I made with Dunbar, using Dunbar process, a lot of them joinery failed very quickly. So what I learned was how to make a good dowel joint. The joints that we use in post and rung chairs are dowel joints. They're round tenon, round mortise, and dowel joints are notorious for failing, but there's a way to make them where they'll never come apart. So I learned that, and after that class, I looked for other Windsor chair makers, teachers that had the same approach to joinery as Brian did. So it was a real revelation. And I ended up, I didn't take any more classes with Dunbar. I took a class with Curtis Buchanan and a couple classes with Pete Galbert, which kind of ended up my career as a Windsor chair maker. But their approaches to joinery were simple. Wood's the same whether you make a Windsor chair or a post and rung chair.
Okay, let me ask you. When you graduated chair makers, could you have gone to Canada without the experience of the gentleman before?
Probably, but I think I got more out of it. Having already had some experience in chairs, even though it was a different kind of chair. And I definitely, having experienced joinery using Dunbar's method, having that experience really highlighted the fact that what Brian was teaching was different and better and much better. I probably would not have known that right away if that had been my first class. Yeah.
Okay. So how many, do you still take classes?
No, I haven't taken a class in a long time. How
many classes have you taken, if you can remember?
Okay, so I took 7 with Dunbar. I've taken 3 with Brian. and we can get into those. And I take them, one with Curtis Buchanan and two with Pete Galbert, whatever that adds up to, about 12. I also took a couple of turning classes with Ernie Conover, who's, I don't think he's active anymore, but he used to be pretty well known in the turning field. Took turning classes with him.
So at what point did you take your turning class? What chair making class were you on when you decided I need to take a turning class?
I think I was still doing the Dunbar classes, and in the Dunbar classes, the turnings were machine turnings. They were done on a duplicator lathe, and I wanted to be able to. So he didn't teach turning. He didn't teach turning at all. He didn't even demonstrate it, as far as I can remember. So it was just here are the turnings, use these. And when I went home with the chair kit, I got turnings. Already turned, but they were duplicator turnings, and so I wanted to learn how to turn a Windsor chair leg. But I was working completely in isolation. I had no one to teach me. Didn't know about turning clubs or anything, and even the turning clubs are mostly bowls and things like that. Anyway, to find someone that turning for furniture is unusual. So I wanted to make a Windsor chair leg. I wanted to learn how to do that. And so I took a week-long class on spindle turning, on no bowls at all, which was unusual because most turning classes, usually you get a mix of bowls and spindles, but this is just on spindle turning. And that was another revelation in that I learned to turn a baluster Windsor chair leg, probably not great, but I could do it. And what I realized was that there was a qualitative difference in a hand-turned Windsor chair leg compared to one-off Windsor chair leg. Most of the classes you take today with these top-notch Windsor chair makers, you always get hand-turned legs. You generally don't do turning in classes, but you do get hand-turned legs. So turning, so you can see what a good turning looks like. So that was fabulous to see that not only could I do it myself, but what I could do by myself was better than what I had been using. It was a real revelation.
So now, you said you don't make chairs to sell. You don't sell chairs.
Not generally. I'm starting to have too many chairs in my shop. So I started.
I got a van. My van can take a lot of stuff.
I started in this last class. I said, well, I have too many chairs. If anyone wants to buy some of these ladder backs, I'd be happy to sell them. I did actually sell one in my last class. So I'm going to keep doing that. I said, let me make more chairs and then have a captive audience here during class. And so no, I don't sell chairs. Again, it's a lot of it is to sell chairs. You have to promote, and
we're back to that.
Yeah, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to go to craft fairs. I don't want to do anything about having to sell chairs to individuals. I went to a craft fair maybe 10 years ago as a customer, and I had this visceral reaction to being there as like, you got to get me out of this place. It was just like too painful. So I don't want to do any of that promotion work to sell chairs. No.
Okay, so let's get into your brain. How did you become the guy that chair makers come to draw their chairs?
So in 2008, I took another class with Brian. This time we were doing the chair that I wanted to build, his iconic 3-slat ladder back chair. A somewhat simpler version, but basically the chair that he was selling. And it was a 2-week class in Berea, Kentucky, at a woodworking school there, Kelly Miller's school. And I had made, in the 2 years since I had taken my first class with Brian, I had made a bunch of ladder backs on my own. And I continued to make Windsor chairs and learn how to do that. And but still working in isolation at home. And the first thing that Brian does in all of his classes, and I do the same thing now, is he just asks people to go around the room and say who they are, where they're from, maybe a little bit about what their woodworking experience is. And the guy next to me says, "Hi, my name's Bill. I'm from Winchester, Virginia." Winchester, Virginia is 20 miles from me. So I had traveled 500 miles to meet someone that to meet another chairmaker that lives 20 miles from me. And during that class, so that was great. And during that class, I by far had more experience than any of the students. There were 8 or 9 students, and by far, I'd probably make 20 or 30 chairs at that point, Windsors and ladderbacks. So I had, and it was a 2-week class, which 10 days to make a chair that I teach in 7. And so it was very, for me, the pace was very slow. And so I had lots of extra time. So I would go around and, see what the other students were doing, help them out a little bit. I don't know if Brian appreciated that or not, but I did. I also take very good notes. So I took really good notes, and I would have people from that class call me after the class. "Can you send me your notes?" Or ask me. I was the tech support after the class, because mostly, Brian's back doing his production furniture, and he doesn't have time to answer student questions for the most part. Not that he wouldn't, but so people would call me or email me, and my friend Bill, who lives 20 miles away. When we got back, I made all the jigs and bending forms that we needed for that class. And I made 2 of everything, one for me, one for Bill, a set for me, set for Bill. And we built each a chair together. And Bill said that he would not have been able to go home from that class and build a chair on his own had it not been for me. And Bill's a retired physician, and he had another friend who's also a retired physician that's also chair making. And I basically taught them both how to make chairs. And some guy from the class said, I don't know what to do. He lives in North Carolina. So I said, come up here for a long weekend, and we'll make all the jigs. And we did that. And another guy from the class was taking the class again the next year, another 2-week class on this same chair, and asked me if I was going to be there. And I said, "No, I don't think I need that, but you're going to be halfway to my house at the end of that class. Come up and we'll make all the jigs, and you can go home and make another chair." So that was the very beginning of starting to help people help people learn how to make chairs. Very informal, just did it. I wasn't charging anything. It was just friends, just helping friends. And, but I really liked it. I felt like I was pretty good at it. And then in 2010, so usually when you take a class, you always say you're going to keep in touch with the other students, and that almost never happens. But that class, that 2008 class with Brian for the 3-slot chair, we actually did keep in touch, 5 people from that class, plus another friend up here in Winchester. And as a group, 6 of us went down in 2010 to Brian's shop. He had now moved to Asheville, and we took the rocker class with him. And at that point, I went in my graphic design. So I'm still doing graphic design. At the end of 2008, I went from full-time to part-time. I sold my share of the business to my partner, and I took 1 client, and I started working from home. So I was starting in 2009. So I had a lot of free time. The graphic design work that I was doing maybe took 5 to 10 hours a week. So I had plenty of extra time to devote to chair making. So we went down to 2010. I'm working part-time. We go down and take this, again, another 2-week class with Brian on building his rocker. And he had heard that I'd been helping all these people. And I said, Brian, is this okay? And he was very positive about it. Said, yeah, that's great. That's just great. And people were complaining at the class about the lack of written material. Basically, there were a couple of pages with dimensions. That was it. You had to take really good notes if you wanted to go home and build, especially the rockers, a challenging chair to build on your own. So while I was there, I talked to Brian and I said, listen, I know the processes. I've got a lot of extra time on my hands, and I'm a graphic designer, and I'd be happy to do a manual for your rocking chair. And he called me up after that class and asked me to start on a rocking chair manual and to come down 2 months later and be his assistant at the next class. And that's really where I have class I don't know if people know about this, because I don't really publicize it, but I have developed class manuals for each of the chairs that I teach. They're about 100 pages long, fully illustrated. And that's where all that started. And so I would go down, starting 2010, I would go down to Brian's, usually twice a year, to be his assistant at his chair class. And at the same time, I was working on these manuals. I didn't get paid for any of this, but it was stuff I wanted. It was just, I wanted to do it. And
well, right. You got paid in what you do now, your experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here now if I hadn't done that, you know. And
before you became his assistant, did he have one?
I remember that class we took in 2008, the side chair class. He had an assistant at that class. It was one of his ex-employees. But I think for the most part, I don't think he had someone that was consistently co-teaching, not co-teaching, but assisting him. I wasn't real co-teaching. I was just there as an assistant. But I learned a lot every time I went, of course, because Brian's knowledge of woodworking is encyclopedic. And so no, I don't think he had a consistent assistant until I started doing that. I did that for 3 years till 2013.
So you got a lot of sweat in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I loved going down there. I loved being part of the class and helping out. And you know, I saw how Brian how Brian taught, and I knew if I ever taught, there were things that I would want to do differently. So it was a great experience all the way around. And I got started on these manuals. So it's what led me here to what I'm doing now. And Brian stopped teaching in 2013, so I haven't. His interest in ladderbacks was waning at the time, and he's has since recently stopped making ladderbacks, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I think as of last year, he has released those designs essentially into the public domain. So those ladderback chairs that I teach, which were Brian's production chairs, are now free for anyone to build, sell, or teach. No commission, no nothing. It's, you know, basically in the public domain. Oh.
So how did others find out that you did this and started using you to put their stuff on paper? How did the word get out?
How did the word get out? Well, I did, you know, I was doing the class manuals for Brian. And so we started that in 2010. I started teaching on my own here in 2012. And that's when I started doing my blog. My blog was, at that point, was part of Brian's website. And
How old is your blog?
what's that?
How old is your blog?
Well, I probably started in, I don't know exactly, 2011, 12, somewhere around there.
And what's the name of it?
Well, right now it's Jeff Lefkowitz, Chairmaker. But there was a component on Brian's site called Chairmaker's Journal, I think, something like that. And that was me. I was Chairmaker's Journal, and I would write about chairs, and that was my way of promoting. This is how I promote. I needed to. I do promote, but it's really kind of passive. I needed to. So in 2012, when I started teaching, if I wanted students, if someone wanted to learn, do a ladder back chair, they wanted to learn from Brian, not from, I'm a nobody. No, the only thing I had going for me was Brian was recommending me. But other than that, so I had to establish my expertise, and that's what I did with the blog, which was write about chair making, get into the really minute detail to demonstrate that I kind of knew what I was talking about, and that worked really well. That worked really well. It took a few years before I got to the point where I was getting booked pretty quickly, but that worked really well. You had asked the question leading up to that, and I can't remember. I didn't answer it.
How did the word get out?
How to work it out. That's, yes. So I did that blog. Yeah. That was it. That was slowly there, and I wasn't doing Instagram or Twitter at that point. I can't remember when I started doing that. Oh, the word get out for the drawings. Yes. Okay, that's right. So I've done these class manuals. I've done a blog. The blog has a lot of drawings on them. And in 2014, I had a student here from Australia, Glenn Rundell, and he had taken some classes from Curtis. And after the class, he wanted to go down. We did a road trip. He wanted to go down and visit Curtis and Caleb James and Brian and Greg Pennington. We did a road trip and visited all those people. And we stayed overnight with Curtis. So Curtis, I hadn't seen Curtis in 5 years, and I had showed him my manuals that I'd done for Brian. So he remembered me from class, and he knew what I was doing with Brian, and he had seen the manuals. So I think it was about 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. I remember it was like a New Year's Eve day or something like that. I was at a friend's house, and I got this call from Curtis Buchanan. And he said, I'm having trouble finding people I'm having trouble with getting these drawings made of chairs. He had two drawings done by Caleb James, and they were very good. And then Caleb was just doing it as a favor. It not really something he wanted to be doing. And then this other guy, I don't know who it was, but Curtis said the guy was could draw really well, but he was not good at details. And Curtis said that he would send proofs back to him with corrections, and all the corrections would get made, but new errors were introduced, and it was frustrating.
That sounds like me, but he didn't say anything to me.
So he asked if I'd be interested, and I said, yeah, I'd love to give it a try. And I remember when those plans first came out, and I saw the ones that Caleb was doing, and I looked at those and I said, I can do that. I know I can do that. And I've been doing it ever since. And the first one was a struggle because I didn't have a really good process in place, so it was a little hard to do it, but we got it done. And over the years, I've been developing a process that's very specific to what I'm doing with these that are giving really great results. So people, and I now, I don't know when I started on Instagram, probably around 15 or 16 maybe. And every time I do a new plan, I usually post it. So people know that I'm doing that. And I get contacted occasionally by people that want plans. And I do it because I love doing it. And I didn't want it to turn into a job. So I trade with with Curtis. I get chairs. I don't get a chair for every set of plans. I'd be overrun. But it feels to me like important work. This is part of what
it is.
Part of what I liked about chair making. I never said this earlier, but one of the reasons I liked making chairs was that, again, with the graphic design, everything was temporary, was in the trash in a month or a year or something like that. But with chairs, suddenly I was making something that would outlive me. 100 years from now, someone might be sitting in my chair. And with Brian's chairs, with the class manuals, I've been capturing the design and the process. So 100 years from now, I think 100 years from now, someone's going to want to make that Brian Boggs chair. I really do. If they can come across a copy of my class manual, they could do it. They can make that exact chair. That feels important.
Yes.
And the same thing with Curtis is that here's a guy that's been, his entire career has been making Windsor chairs. He's probably has a portfolio of maybe 30, 35 chairs, either that he's designed or traditional chairs that he's made his own through design improvement. And essentially, so what we've probably done about 20 maybe. And we're capturing his design. I'm not capturing process for him, but he has all those YouTube videos on how to make a chair. But I'm capturing the designs. And so again, anyone now, if they know anything about Windsor chair making, can get those plans and make that chair. And into the future, these things I'm sure are going to survive. There are lots and lots of them out there. And so that feels like a legacy. That's what's important to me. So all of a sudden now, when I started doing manuals for Brian, now all of a sudden graphic design had meaning. It had meaning that it didn't have when I was doing it as a business, and feels like important work to be able to put on paper and preserve someone's legacy. These great chair makers. I've done a few plans for Pete Galbert and other chair makers. So and other craftsmen as well. I've done some shaving horse plans, spoon mule plans, a bowl lathe, a spring pole lathe, and things like that. So and what I get in return is things that people have made, and it's very, very satisfying. And I don't keep track of time. I don't care. I don't care how long it takes me. I just want it to be done well, and it's usually satisfying. And
when is it not?
Excuse me?
You said it's usually satisfying. I'm asking.
Usually, no, not usually. Yeah, it's tremendously satisfying. It's always satisfying.
Okay. Can we get a shop tour?
Sure, I'm sitting here.
Okay, before we do that, is there anything that I forgot?
Anything you forgot?
That you wanna say or tell us about?
No, I just say that for the classes, if you're thinking of, well, I'm booked for the year, but I do get cancellations, so there's a waiting list. I'm not really promoting this, but I'm just putting it out.
Information is good.
Yeah. I will have a schedule for next year posted around November 1st. I'll post about that on Instagram. I'll probably do 8 classes next year. After next year, I'm not sure. I'll be 70 in a year and a half. I don't know how long I can keep doing it. It's very, very demanding, the classes are. which is why I'm training people to teach. This is again a legacy thing. I want people to, I want the chair to continue to be taught. So I have 3 people coming. But
So
I would say, excuse me?
You do 8 classes a year?
That's about my limit right now. Yeah,
That's
there's
a
7.
lot.
Yeah, it is it's very demanding. There's a lot of prep work. They're 7-day classes. We usually go 8 to 10 hours a day, and it's a lot. It's a lot for one person to manage.
So why not reduce it to do it longer than take 8 and then stop in a year or 2?
You mean less classes?
Yeah, less classes a year instead of doing 8 to 4.
Well, up until now, David Douillard's teaching in Connecticut. He's teaching a few classes. I always felt guilty about backing down the number of classes because I had so much demand. So I'm trying to create.
Well, then how the heck can you stop?
Right. That's why. So I'm trying to create some more teachers so that the pressure's off me and I can feel good about either stopping or reducing. I could, I'm in total control. So if I want, I could teach 6 classes or 4 classes, a little bit. I'll probably keep my hand in it for a while, but at some point I won't be able to do it. I know that.
Right.
So my long-term plan is hopefully to maybe write a book on post and rung chairs. But
cool. All right, Brian has another question. Where are the classes? We got 2 that are interested.
Excuse me?
Brian wants to know where the class is taught.
What do they cost? Okay.
No, where are they taught?
Where are they taught? In my shop in Strasburg, Virginia, which is in the Shenandoah Valley. It's about 75 miles due west of Washington, D.C.
And you have no availability this year?
None. Everything's booked, but get on a waiting list or look for my announcement of next year's classes. And if you're interested in those classes, look for my announcement on Instagram, email me, and let me know you're interested, and I'll send you an email when the schedule's up. I put the schedule up a week before I start taking reservations so people can look at it, figure out what dates work for them, and then the day that the schedule goes up, I'm just going to let everyone. I'm not doing a first come, first serve. I'm doing a first come that day, first serve. So whoever signs up that day, I'll look at it the next day and kind of divvy things up. But look for that announcement around November 1st. I'll post it on November. Post it a week before, and start taking reservations on November 1st for next year.
Okay. All right. So let's get into the tour.
Okay. I'm gonna see. How do I flip this around?
And Brian, you can send them an email about that.
Here we go. Let me turn the light on in this other side of the shop. Sorry. So they're basically two, maybe 3 parts of the shop. This is the original building before it was renovated, and this is basically the machine area of the shop. So got a drill press, chop saw. The classes are primarily hand tools, but they're most of the prep work, the major prep work like joining and sawing and things like that are done on machines. Saw stop table saw with a router table extension, grinder, and my new nice dust collector underneath. Joiner on wheels, so it comes out when I need it. Lathe, thickness planer, also on wheels, and a bandsaw. So I don't know if you were counting, but that's a lot of machines in this little space. And the space is maybe 14 by 23, something like that. It's not
I
that.
was about to ask, do you have any more machines?
That's it. That's all the machines I've got. The other thing I would say about machines is that I specifically like, if you look at that joiner, it's just the home, it's just a consumer level joiner. Same thing, benchtop planer. The lathe's pretty good, but I specifically try not to get machines that my students won't have. When I was taking class with Brian, he was doing, joining a leg on a 16-inch joiner. He can get the whole 4-foot leg on either side of the cutter head. And, I don't want students going home and thinking they have to have these giant machines to do the work. So I can demonstrate everything on basically consumer level machines. Some of them are good, but, that might be more of a bandsaw than people need, but they'll have a bandsaw. Same thing. Table saw is not necessary for chair making. I use it. It does make some processes easier and faster, but it's definitely not necessary. But I use it in class for just to make things faster. Lathes, a very good lathe, and you don't really need that level of lathe to do the work. So it's a lot of machines in a small space, but it's comfortable with. So I have 3 students at a time and sometimes an assistant, and it doesn't feel too crowded with 5 people in here. Any more than that, it does start feeling kind of crowded.
David said liking the new dust collector. Does look pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like it. It's I had a jet which the motor went out, and I got it repaired. My son is a woodworker, so one of my motivations in buying new machines is that I can donate my old machine to my son, so I don't feel too bad about it. So I had the old dust collector repaired and gave it to him, and got the new one. The new one's great. It's if you look at it, it's very short. Fits under a countertop, so it's really opened up the space in this part of this room nicely, and it's a fabulous dust collector too. So then there's the addition, which is what we're looking into now. Is I would say is the bench room or the hand tool room. So I've got a bench. The bench I made when I didn't know anything about woodworking. You wouldn't believe what that bench is made out of. The bottom is, do you want to know?
Yes.
So the bottom is, when I was going to craft fairs, I had bought this old Dodge telephone company van, and the bottom is a metal base out of that van. And then the top is, do you remember this end up furniture? It looked like packing crates. That was their thing. They made, and it was a thing back in the 80s probably. A big, heavy pine furniture. So the top is this end up kitchen tabletop, which I then put some hardwood around the edges and a piece of plywood on top of that. And that's been my workbench for 15 years.
Wow.
It is not flat, I can tell you that. So, and a vise that I got originally, and I've added that vise because I have more students. So we've got a lot of storage clamps, and back in that corner, that's my light bulb kiln for drying rungs. My herd of shave horses, 3 shave horses. And another bench. When I started to take 3 students, I added a second bench, and I've got some chairs in progress on that.
Nice chairs.
And I've got a couple of rolling carts which are really useful. These are parts for my next class. Yeah, I'm getting everything together for that. So, and I've got the other addition is storage and a kind of a break room and a chair gallery. So I've got a fridge and a table for food. Boggs rocker that I made. Some bar stools. Curtis Buchanan chair there in the corner. Armchair, unfinished for 7 or 8 years. Little Jenny Alexander chair that my son made. A really nice original Danish modern chair, probably from the 70s, that a friend of mine restored. P. Galbert stool, blue stool on the back. Another bar stool. Vern Chanley's beautiful chair. And this one here is one of my very first ladder back chairs, post and rung chairs. No rake and splay in the legs, just a very simple 2-slat chair. And I've got a lot of storage, hickory bark, parts for upcoming classes, things like that. That is basically it. So it's not a huge space, but it wasn't planned as for classes, but it's worked out really well. I'm going to flip myself around here.
Very nice.
Oh, here I am. Okay.
All right. Well, I thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Very much appreciated. And from here, it'll be on the page, and then it'll go to YouTube.
Okay.
All right. So we got you covered.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you. And keep teaching.
Oh.
we need you.
I'll do the best I can, and if at the very least, I'm working on getting more teachers out there. So.
And yes, and David, do your I guess picks up your overage, because that's how we met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So, thank you again, and have a great day.
Okay. You take
Thank
care.
you for tuning in.
Okay.
Good evening.